Hello and welcome to another exclusive TNC podcast. I am so excited about this one. Former Norwich City midfielder, 41 appearances and 3 goals, one glorious one against the Scum, the solid South African, the only South African to ever play for Norwich City. Well, there was Bally Smart, who made 1 appearance, but that'll ruin my intro, so let's not count that. Welcome to the show, Matty Pattison. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, man. Thanks for having me on. Excited to do it.
Yeah, mate, I'm really excited. I'm pretty sure this is the first piece of Norwich media you've done since you've left, as we discussed off air before we started. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very interesting one for the Norwich fans, to say the least. Matty, to kick things off, if you don't mind, I always ask this question. Let's go right back to the beginning, and I mean right back to the beginning for you. You obviously were born in Johannesburg in South Africa. You came over to England in '97. What do you remember of that? Because that in itself is a pretty epic journey. How did that happen?
Yeah, well, my parents, obviously, they were originally from Newcastle, emigrated out to South Africa, and myself and my brother were born out there. So it was just a case of us having our childhood up until I think I was 11 when I moved back. You know, so I had most of my childhood in South Africa before obviously moving back to the UK with my parents. So yeah, it was a funny old story to tell, but a good one nonetheless.
Absolutely, for sure. And the other kind of crazy part is that you joined the Newcastle Academy at just 14 years old. A, how did that come about? And B, what was the moment where you thought, I've got a chance of making it as a professional here?
But you know what, even in South Africa, you know, I think because my parents were from Newcastle and my dad was such a big Newcastle fan, that was always, you know, it was the same. Me and my brother both supported the club, massive fans, and you know, because of that, I played football from a very young age. You know, whereas in South Africa, a lot of people might have went down the cricket or rugby route, where you know, I just love football. So played that all my life, and then coming back to England, I was always a little bit skeptic and worried that the standard would be a lot better when I came back over here, which, you know, it wasn't really. And when I first sort of started school and playing football with my peers, you know, it quickly became apparent that I was one of probably the better player, which was quite surprising. So just played local boys club football as soon as I got back, and within a couple of years got scouted for Newcastle, and then sort of went from there really. So yeah.
Did you ever play? I do wonder, Matty. Did you play rugby in South Africa? Is that where you kind of got your physicality from? Like, because I feel like during your time at Norwich, certainly that was an element of your game that I thought Matty's not going to lose. Like, no one's going to push him off the ball. Was that something that, like, is that just you, or did you kind of get that from the rugby side in South Africa potentially, or did you not play it at all?
No, to be honest, I never played rugby.
Okay. I
played a little bit of cricket, you know, at club level, because obviously you played football in the winter, cricket in the summer.
Yeah.
I did play a bit of cricket, but never rugby. I think where I got my frame from was when I had my serious knee injuries at Newcastle. Best part of 2 years, you would just spend literally months on end in the gym. So I was quite a stocky frame anyway, but it took that to another level, spending that much time in the gym, you know, not being able to do anything else but lift weight. So sometimes it can be a bit detrimental to your football career, but it's the only thing you can do at the time.
We're going to talk about your knee injuries, Matty, because there's quite a lot that I'd like to go into on that. But before we do that, I know you only made 10 appearances for Newcastle, which is still a massive achievement in itself, considering your family of fans and all of that stuff. But what was it like playing with the likes of, training, with the likes of Alan Shearer, Patrick Kluivert, Craig Bellamy? These are, like, at the time especially, you know, massive players. I mean, for you as a kind of a Geordie boy, that must have been just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always say I was blessed at the time to go in to be involved with such players. You know, like you just reeled off a few names there. You know, and even likes of Gary Speed, Michael Owen, Nicky Butt, Kieran Dyer, Lee Bowyer, you know, Jonathan Woodgate, so many. And it's to be involved with them players, you learn so much. You know, and to be able to train with them every day, it's a massive thing. And probably done a lot for my career. You know, taking little bits from different players. Not all of them were great role models, to be honest, but you know, the majority of them were.
I was gonna ask you, Matty, actually, if you don't mind, who wasn't a good role model?
It's a tough one to say, to be honest, because you know, you look at it two ways. I always think that they were tough on younger players and made life really difficult for us at times because they were testing us in many ways to see if we could cope with the pressures.
Yeah,
and, you know, it was sort of that era where you were coming away from the real old school sort of, you know, apprenticeship. Hardened,
clean my boots sort of thing.
Yeah, but these lads had all been through it heavily as YTs and apprentices. So, you know, there was at times, obviously, like Kieran Dyer, Craig Bellamy, really tough on us younger players. You know, if you weren't performing, completely different if you were performing. You know, and they liked you, and you showed you could cope with the pressures. They loved you then. But if you know, I've seen them absolutely ruin players to the point where their career just go down.
Wow, really?
You know, and that is the tough school of football. And you'll talk to probably so many people that have probably been the same. You know, lucky enough, I've done okay with them, and you know, I got on pretty well with them.
Well, it was, but on a very serious note, Matty, what you've said there is right. However, I feel like that era of Newcastle boys were just absolute units, like, and also they were fighters, literally. You said yourself, Lee Bowyer, Kieran Dyer, Alan Shearer. You would not touch those guys. So it must have been just such a hard environment to grow in a funny sort of way.
It was, and to be honest, I think the only reason I got such a chance there at the time was because of the size of the injury list at the time. So many players were injured, and big names as well. Where if you see the majority of games I played was alongside a lot of lads that were a bit similar to myself.
Yeah,
you know, like some Michael Chopper and I mean Charles Nzogbia to an extent. You know, David Edgar, Paul Huntington, all players that would Stephen Taylor that came through the youth system, and you know, and we all got opportunities at a similar time.
Unbelievable, such a throwback. Some of those players that you mentioned, and away from players, you know, someone that we have to pay homage to and our greatest respects to is that man Bobby Robson. It's just I think you are so, and you probably know this anyway, but I just think you are so lucky to have been privileged enough to just have a conversation with him. Like, what everyone, obviously, for all of the right reasons, gives him all of the praise in the world. What was he like as a human being to be around?
Yeah, brilliant. You know, like so upbeat, and you know, just loved life, loved being involved with a football club that he obviously, it was his club. You know, Geordie. Just absolutely loved it, you know, and I don't think he's obviously seen what he'd done in his career. No matter where he went or where he had been, I don't think he ever changed. And you know, he always had that humility about him, and he was so down to earth. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't work with him for a long time because, like I said, when I had a spell of being involved with the first team for quite a while, and then playing my first game with all those previous names that you mentioned. In a pre-season game, and it was only the week after where I sort of
then got injuries,
done my ACL, and you know that. So,
but Bobby gave you that step up, right, Matty? Did he give you the opportunity?
Yeah. So the first game was under Sir Bobby. You know, just trained with him that day, and I came up from the academy, trained with the first team that day, and he said, "Listen, I like the look of you. I want you to come travel with the team tonight." And we went up to Celtic to play the pre-season friendly. You know, so you're going from, I didn't get enough time to think about it or to, you know, to reflect or anything. It just happened so quickly. And, I thought from then I could really build on it. And then just shows you life and football, how things can change in a heartbeat.
That's some game to start, Matty, even in a pre-season up against like Newcastle Celtic. It's not exactly like, I don't know, like Norwich Tranmere or something. It's just boom, straight away, big stage, two huge clubs. So fair play to you. And you've already touched on it, Matty. Let's open this up. Sadly, we had to talk about this. I think it's fair to say that your career was kind of damaged in a way by your injuries, particularly the two knee ligaments at your ACL, as you say, at Newcastle. Players talk about this a lot more than ever before now, but at the time, I feel like it wasn't particularly prevalent, the actual mental psychology side of things. I am in awe of you. How did you bounce back from not just one, but two of those? Like, that must have been such a challenging period for you in your career.
Yeah, I mean, it was really tough. Like you said there, it's so much of it's mental, and to be in a gym constantly and not be able to go out with the rest of your teammates and get involved, and you see some of them progressing to a place where you want to be. It's a lot to take in, and but it's one of them. If you just have to try and stay focused and get through it. Obviously the second time was so much worse than the first time, because you know that you've got to go through it all again. That was probably the toughest time of my whole career. That second injury. I think it took me probably 6 weeks to really start cracking on and realizing, okay, it's happened now. I need to try and get going again and mentally prepare myself for what's ahead.
How old were you at the time, Matty, when that happened to you?
I would have been 17 and 18. So obviously when it happened, first one 17, second one 18.
Unbelievable. Because if that happens to a young player, it's so tough. It's so tough. So again, my absolute respect to you for that. And maybe some Geordies will respect you for this actually as well. A rather strange moment, 2007. Can you guess what I'm going to say? Michael Owen knocked out the pitch. Just talk me through that mental moment. Like, what actually happened?
It was just a freak incident. I think it was, if I remember rightly, I think it was Watford away. It was just a throw-in, so both of us were working the line. I was in front of him, and the balls got thrown over my head, and I've spun to try and get it back off him, and then he's been closer than I thought, and my shoulders just banged straight into his chin and just cleaned him out. And at the time, I think he had only just recently came back himself from an ACL, which I think at the time I'm sure his wife and his kids might have been in the crowd that day or watching anyway, and they feared the worst. They must have thought he had gone down again, and so he always had a bit of a joke, and told me about that after it, saying that he's had his full family on tenterhooks, thinking he had done his ACL again.
And he was probably already under enough fire, because he was under fire from the Newcastle fans at that time, wasn't he? So that was probably the last thing he needed, was you giving him a shoulder.
Yeah, he did. He got a lot of stick, especially in that game, I think, as he said in his book. And I remember it, and again, it was so uncalled for, and it was a bit disappointing, really, from the fans, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not in with the Newcastle fans, but you do read and see and hear about it, and I know how much of a kerfuffle Michael Owen's autobiography brought up, and so my empathy to the Newcastle fans. But maybe you should respect Matty for giving him a shoulder. I don't know, but I'll stay out of that one. Right, here we go. Norwich City time, 2007. The loan deal at first. Glenn Roeder, of course, your former gaffer at Newcastle, comes calling. First of all, just on that loan, Matty, why did you make that move, and how did it feel to join Norwich at the time?
Yeah, it was pretty simple, to be honest. I just wanted to play more games.
Right.
I started feeling a bit stale playing reserve team football. Under 23 football as it is now, constantly and week in, week out, it was becoming tougher and tougher to challenge yourself. And like I said, you find yourself becoming a bit stale. So, it was obviously, like you said, I'd worked with Glenn from the academy up into the first team. He had just a couple of weeks prior took Lee Clark as his assistant.
Yeah,
who had been my reserve manager.
Top man, by the way, incredible guy.
Yeah, loved Clarky a bit. You know, and I think he was a big reason for me going there, as well as Glenn. But I think with me spending a couple of months with Clark in the reserves, I think he played a big part in getting me there. So you know, once I got the call, it was an absolute no-brainer. You know, Norwich were going through a really bad spell at the time. So in my eyes, it was just, you know, it was a no-lose situation. You go there, you get games, you help the club try and move forward from where they're at, which was, I think, bottom of the league when Glenn first went in, wasn't it? In and around there anyway. I know you had got a couple of results prior to me coming, but yeah, absolute no-brainer. Didn't know nothing about Norwich as a place. I obviously knew the club, you know, so I was really excited to go. You know, you couldn't get me there quick enough.
And how did that because obviously you first came on a loan deal, and then what sort of conversations happened for it to become permanent? Was it just like, again, was it a no-brainer for you? Was it easy, or did you want to go back to Newcastle to try and make it there? What was the situation with the permanent deal?
Well, I think I'd really enjoyed my loan spell. I don't know whether I played 10 or 11 games, but you know, I'd done pretty well in that loan spell.
Yeah, you did.
Really enjoyed my football. You know, coming to Norwich and not knowing a lot about the city, and I always knew it was a big club, but you don't realise that until you're actually playing there. And probably, you know, Norwich is a lot like Newcastle as a football club in many ways, where you know the fans are so passionate. You get maximum capacity every home game. You know, the fans live for the club. So when you go there and you see what it's all about, you know, it's everything fitted. I like the place. You know, the city was a little bit quieter to obviously to Newcastle at the time, which should have been a good thing for me. We'll talk about that later, but it was a good move for me. Loved it, and you know, with Glenn and Lee there at the time, and Steve, they done all they could to get me, to convince me to stay. You know, I had a few offers at the time from a few other clubs, you know, but I never really entertained them because I wanted to be a part of the club with them at the time, because I really enjoyed working for them.
So go on then. Now it's all over and been and done and gone. What other clubs were interested in you, Matty?
I think Burnley was a main one.
Okay.
You know, I think at the time there was quite a lot of interest there, and I think it might have been Chef Wed as well at the time that expressed a bit of interest.
Well, we're better than Burnley, definitely. That was a no-brainer.
So
you're Wednesday at the time.
No, obviously Burnley weren't where they are now, and
yeah, true.
But nonetheless, you know, had a good conversation with Clarky on the phone. I think we had played Palace. It might have been New Year's Day. We played Palace away, and I was driving back up to Newcastle after the game with my obviously girlfriend, who's my wife now. You know, and we were already discussing the potential of it, and you know, I had a call from him just saying, like, we really want you to sign permanently, so have a good think about it, and you know, and make the right decision. And
how long did it take you to think about it?
A couple of days, and it was done deal. You know, there was no, as much as I love Newcastle as a club, when you go from being a big fan to a player for the club, your sort of your perspective changes a little bit. You see how the club is, which it's a fantastic club, but you lose a little bit of that real bond that you have with the club as a supporter.
Yeah.
You know, so I never had any intentions of going back and having another crack at it, because for one, I just wasn't a Sam Allardyce player at the time. He made it apparent that I was only ever going to be a squad player, and at the time, I just wanted to play games.
And you obviously got that at Norwich. Matty, one of the main reasons why I wanted to get you on, there's a couple more bombshells coming, is Mr. Roeder. We have to talk about him. interestingly for you, actually, because what I really want to know from you is, what was the difference between the Glenn Roeder at Newcastle and the Glenn Roeder at Norwich? And what was your relationship like with Glenn Roeder at Newcastle and at Norwich?
Yeah, what a lot of people don't realise is I had a very up and down relationship with Glenn. I always knew he rated me highly, and like, I can't thank him enough for what he done for my football career, because he basically an academy player up through the ranks at Newcastle, played under him, and then moved on to Norwich and had a good spell there. You know, so I really like Glenn. He was a character. You know, he was one of them blokes that didn't have a filter. You know, he said what was on his mind. I think he had a bit more of a filter when he got up into the first team at Newcastle and was with some really, really big egos and big names.
Yeah.
You know, which when he came to Norwich, maybe not as much in terms of high-profile players. You know, he would speak to people a lot differently than he did at Newcastle, and it would rub a lot of people up the wrong way. Like I said, I had an up and down relationship with Glenn, because if I wasn't performing to the way I should have been, he was on me, constantly on me. So I was in his office more than probably any other player, because I think in many ways he wanted me to kick on again to what I did. I done probably okay at Norwich, but I think he wanted me to take my game to the next level.
So Matty, when you say you were in his office, what happens there? Does Glenn literally does he call you? Does he come up to you and say, "You, me, my office now"? Like, how does that work? And
it could be that. It could be that. It could be Clark Eels tell me to go and see him, or one of the lads that he's seen previous might come and say, you know, the gaffer wants to have a word with you. It could be anything from, you know, having a poor day on the training pitch to, you know, you're looking a bit, you're not looking yourself around the place, or I've been caught out and about, which happened a few times. Somebody's been onto the club saying they've seen you in so and so.
Mercy nightclub. Yeah,
that's been one of the places, and you shouldn't have been there. And is that why you look like a bag of shit in training? So it was with Glenn, with Clarky, with Steve. It was almost as if I was like their son, and like they was constantly disappointed with me if I wasn't doing the right thing. Do you know what I mean?
Because of the Newcastle link.
Yes, and because probably I'd initially came and done very, very well, and helped them get to a place where they wanted to be. I think, you know, there was that sort of that relationship, and I had a couple of fallouts with Glenn myself, and you know, when I maybe didn't agree with him, or you know, or thought I'm not having him talk to me like that, you know, which happened with a lot of the Norwich players, which I'm sure we'll get into. You know, he upset a lot of the lads just by his tone and the way he spoke to people.
So,
you know?
Okay, let's start then with your fallouts. What do you remember of your fallouts? And by the way, I cannot fathom it getting to the point where you spark up at a manager, because for me, it's almost like there's got to be an element of respect there, of hierarchy in a sense. Like, I know you're all a team, but at the end of the day, the gaffer's calling the shots. So for him to say something, for you to stand up to him, what happened there, Matty?
It would just be general stuff, really. I would never do it in a group scenario where you would undermine a manager. I would always have that respect for him. You know, if I went into his office and he pulled me up maybe on being out on the weekend, or you know, or not performing in training, or maybe could take me through a few clips in a game, and maybe I thought he was being a little bit harsh. Like at times, not all the time, but I would just say, well, you know, I don't agree. And then he would spark him off, and he would, you know, say, well, how don't you agree? Like, you know, you've turned into this player, or like you haven't made the pass, or you know, and you just have a bit of back and forth. I wouldn't say that I massively fell out with him. You know, obviously when I got done for the drink driving, that was, you know, all my fault. But because I was fuming with it on the Monday morning, like I had a bit of an argument with him then as well. But you know, he had every right to absolutely berate me that Monday morning. But you know, as a young player, sometimes you just can't take these things on the chin.
We are gonna definitely get into that. Well, I'm going to call it iconic story. A lot of we will get there, but first of all, you mentioned it, Matty. What was he like with the other boys? Because we had Semi on last week, and he spoke in depth about his attitude towards the younger players and him just, as you've said, you know, rubbing people up the wrong way and all of that side of things. Like, what did you observe and what do you remember of that time? Like, what was the feeling in that squad? Like, I could imagine the changing room just being a really, really rough place to be.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think he came with probably with a little bit of an attitude of, you know, these lads haven't been doing the business. Now I'm coming in and I'm going to put my stamp on the club. You know, I've came from Newcastle, worked with some top players. And I'm going to come and stamp my authority on this dressing room. And like I said before, even though he's not working with egos as high as big as he had at Newcastle, but there was still some big egos in the Norwich and some big personalities in the Norwich dressing room.
I mean, Dion, Hux.
That's what I mean. And you know, he's as you know, Hux wasn't initially one of his favourites, as I'm sure, as everyone knows. For what reasons, I don't know. Because to me, like, probably the best player played with the Norwich by a mile. You know, should have played every game. For whatever reason, when he first came, maybe he thought that, right, fans' favourite, maybe not doing as well as he should do. I'm gonna try and, you know, and come in and sort of hammer him. Like you said, Semi had it off him time and time again. And to be honest with you, Semi sort of bit his tongue, and credit to him, never really bit. And I think at that time, you know, of course, it's because you've got to watch your own career. You know, yes, he can say that now because he came to the end of it. But you know, I was very surprised that he did bite his tongue a lot of the time. You know, and Kuro, another one, had a few fallouts with Kuro. There was a few players, and like obviously Kuro's was probably the biggest one, if I remember rightly. Chef weared away last game of the season. Dion's last game as a pro, and there was a fallout in the dressing room there. And you know, Kuro basically said, "I won't have you talk to me like that." You know, simple as that. Because Jamie didn't, to be honest with you, didn't take any shit. You know,
what happened? Why did that happen, Matty? Because for me that day, and actually Norwich fans watching and listening to this now will be like, Matty, no, don't tarnish that memory, because that memory is almost like the last day of Hux and Dion. That's like a big day for Norwich fans. And so you're saying actually it all kicked off in the changing rooms.
Yeah.
So why did that happen?
I just think because, you know, the way the day panned out, it was such, like you said, it was an iconic day. You know, especially for Dion being his retirement. I don't know. Did Hux? Did he retire that day? I don't think he did. Did he?
Well, no. But unfortunately, that was the last time he played as well. So very frustrating. Yeah,
I mean, Dion. You know, it was the way the day. Like I said, the way the day panned out. It was. You know, we had Chef went away. Loads of Norwich fans. We were safe the week before. We packed out the away stand. We played so well. We probably played the best we played all season. First half, 1-0 up, and everything just fell apart second half. And you know, to be honest with you, I think we let Dion down that day because, you know, for such an occasion, you as a player, you want to go out on a high, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
You want to potentially go out, you know, with a win, and we were so much in control of that game, and things just completely went pear-shaped. But in all honesty and fair play to all the fans, they realised what a you know, a servant he had been to football, and what a player, and they all, you know, gave him a standing ovation. But at the end, again, because maybe Glenn should have left this till you know, another time, or perhaps the week after, or when we got to training Monday. I don't think it was the right time to bring it up and start calling people out. But there was a few names mentioned. about, you know, for the collapse in the second half, and I don't think it was right myself. I think it could have waited
because it was Dion's day, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it was Dion's day. You know, come in, just tell the lads, yes, we weren't happy, but don't start, you know, really picking people off and absolutely hammering them. You know what I mean? It wasn't the time for it. And he did that to probably about 4 or 5 players that day.
I just don't understand how, like, I just don't understand how he even got past the point of being employed. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And but what's even more crazy for me is, I mean, I've got a great relationship with Clarkie. He's been on the podcast before, absolute top man. But it seems like those two characters were just like chalk and cheese. And why? How did that work?
I think that you're exactly right. They were chalk and cheese. But I think in many ways that's why it worked. It did work pretty well, because Clarkie was massive. Was your go between the two of them.
Yeah.
You know, he was that buffer. He would do a lot of training. Him and Steve would do a lot of the sessions. You know, they would do a lot of meetings. They would, you know, they would sometimes socialise with us lads.
Yeah.
From time to time. You know, Glenn done none of that. Glenn was literally the manager. Spent a lot of time in his office, obviously doing recruitment, whatnot, speaking to a lot of agents. You know, so, but
a lot of loan players.
A lot of loan players, yeah. I mean, we're so, like you say, that they were the polar opposites. And, you know, Clarkie is top man, and he's a proper footballer's kind of guy. You know what I mean?
No, he is, absolutely. I can imagine you got on well with him. And let's take you on a happy. Let's get you in a happy mood before I put you down again, Matty. Norwich fans will always remember you for 2 things. But the thing on the pitch they'll remember you for is that goal against Ipswich. What do you remember of that day? Because obviously Lee Croft scored an absolute pile driver from outside the box. But of course, you scored as well. So you're forever going to be down as a player that beat the scum. And that's a big deal in terms of Norwich City folklore. And how do you feel about that? And what do you remember of that day?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I said before in the interview, you don't realise how big the club is until you come and you experience it as a player. You know, I was lucky enough to play in two of the derbies, I think it was. You know, I played at Portman Road, which was a fantastic experience. It is Portman Road, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Portaloo. We call it Portaloo Road.
Exactly. You know, and I would have called it that after what they'd done to the bus on the way there.
What do they do? Whoa! Stop! Pause. What do they do on the way there?
She had to go through all the fans, so they were hammering the bus and pelting all sorts at the bus.
Really, I don't
know whether the coach driver had went the wrong way or what, but you know, and again, it was we had such a good start in that game, and then I think just it ended up going downhill.
Mahomes is fine.
Yeah, like you said, it was a great day because all my family had came down for the weekend. You know, my mother, my wife, brother, mates. You know, and it was a Sunday game, so you know, fantastic experience. The atmosphere was electric, and I just had this feeling all day that, you know, on Sky, and for some reason, a couple of weeks prior, I'd scored against Forest on Sky as well, and
I think you scored 3 and 4. I actually obviously did my research before you came on. I think you scored 3 goals in 4 games or something. Like bit of a purple patch for you, Matty.
I did, yeah. I was leading up to that game, so it was. I just had this feeling that something was going to go for me that day. You know, and as a team, we played well. You know, not so much first half, but I think second half we played really well. You know, and it was one of their moments that, all a bit of a blur. It sort of happened so quickly off the free kick. It just, these things never happen where they just drop to you. You know, yeah. Couldn't have felt any better. And to be honest with you, like, I couldn't have tried my best to miss it. You know,
into the Barclays as well. It couldn't have been more perfect, Matty. A very, very, very good memory.
Yeah, I think of all the memories that will go down, is probably the best one for me in football. Just the whole atmosphere and scoring and going, you know, celebrating after. It was a fantastic day all around.
Of course, it was. It was an amazing day, and I think that might, and correct me in the comments and tweet me if I'm wrong, I think that might have been the first game of our winning streak, of our decade and beyond of dominance. So you're a real trailblazer there, Matt. So well done. Right. Come on. Now, this is what people have tuned in for. Let's be honest. I've obviously told a few people that you're coming on today. And I feel like, honestly, Matty, I'd be doing them a disservice by not asking you about this. That story, 2008, Colney in your pants. now what? I'm not. Then, by the way, disclaimer before we start, and I'm sure Matty will say it's not good to drink and drive. But can you explain from start to finish in as much detail as you feel comfortable what actually happened and how did you end up at Colney in your pants?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a true story what the papers had portrayed, but the actual true story is even better, to be honest. I mean,
okay, here we go.
In as many in as good a way as it can be. Like I said, obviously it's not good to drink drive, but as the story unfolds, it actually, in my opinion, was a better story.
Go on then, take me from the beginning.
We played Sheffield United away. Got beat 2-0 if I remember rightly, or 2-1. So, you know, obviously when you get beat, you don't really want to go, you know, be seen out in town and living it up. So it was myself, Ryan Bertrand at the time, I think Ched Evans, might have been Piercy as well, might have been there. So there was a few of us anyway, all the lone lads, and then obviously myself, because I think I was still in the hotel. You know, we said we'll have a couple of quiet ones in the hotel, which your famous last words, which obviously went on to Mercy and whatnot, and I think we ended up back at a party somewhere. So, you know, long story short, I didn't get back into my hotel room till about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, absolutely steaming.
Okay.
So this is the bit that I'll never know myself. I got up in the morning, you know, still probably 2.5 hours later, and just had a massive panic up, thinking that, I don't know why to this day, why I thought I had training. But like panic got up, like just threw any bit of clothes on. And this is the, like, leading into the funny part. I didn't actually put any boxer shorts on, so this is going to come later.
So hang on. So you were naked?
So I just threw a pair of jeans on, and I threw a jumper on, like in a panic, and trainers on, no socks, the lot. So I rushes out the hotel at the Dunstan Hall, and realised I haven't got my car keys. So I go back to the reception, stinking a drink, asking for a key so I can go back, because I've left my key in my room as well. So he's given me a new key. I've gone back in the room, got my car keys, came back out again. I'm probably stumbling around and like just be a bit incoherent. And so there's me, drives out the hotel, ends up pulling up to the training ground. I literally pulled up like on a slant, and I'm up on the curb at the back of the training ground where the porter cabins were at the time, and walks into the training ground. It's Sunday. It's open. It's probably about 8 o'clock in the morning. Bear in mind, we don't normally have to be in till 10. Not a soul in sight. And I'm just thinking, where is everybody? Like, I'm just got the probably stupid drunk look on my face, thinking, where is everybody? And I still ask myself to this day, what would I have done if I was training?
Exactly.
So I'm sat there waiting for people to turn up, and the police come in. 2 policemen come into the changing room.
Changing room. So you let yourself in?
I was in. Yeah, I was in. All the doors were open. I think the cleaners must have been in. So they come up to me and say, "Read me my rights." Obviously, straight away, because they'd followed me apparently from the hotel. And this is the funny part. Because I just threw any bit of clothing on, I had a pair of jeans on that were far too baggy for me at the time, because it was 2007 where baggy jeans were in.
Yeah.
So it didn't have my belt on. So, I mean, they cuffed me, which I thought was very unnecessary. Stuck me in cuffs, obviously read me my rights. So with my hands cuffed like that, I could just, my jeans just start falling down, start creeping down. And I'm not really paying any attention to it because I'm still drunk, and like I'm slurring my words to the copper. And then it just drops. And I'm stood there like that. Everything hanging out. And
oh my God!
I'm saying to the copper, "Listen, you're gonna have to give me a hand here. My pants have dropped." So I'm like that, trying to pull them up, covering myself. Obviously, it wasn't a warm morning either.
Wow! So you were all giving at the in the Colney car park.
Yeah, basically. So then I was in the back of the police car, and I spent most of the Sunday in sleeping off my hangover in the police station.
And then what? And then so okay, right. So this happens, and you're in the police station, and then I remember at the time the club obviously got hold of it because the chief exec at the time, Neil Doncaster, did some sort of statement, I think. And obviously the Norwich fans are thinking, what the hell's going on? But let's get into the head of Matty Patterson. So you must have been dreading coming into training.
But yeah, I mean, so because of how naive I literally like came out of the police station, and I remember because I had a couple of mates. I think it was my mate and my brother were staying for the weekend, for the week coming, and like I didn't really think of it too much because I actually thought stupidly enough that maybe nobody knows about it. Maybe it's I'll go under the radar and it's forgot about now. Obviously.
Oh no!
Monday morning, because I used to get the paper delivered to put under my door at the hotel. So Monday morning, that was the first. I mean, I'd spoke to Clarkey on the Sunday because he had a missed call of him obviously while I was in jail.
18 missed calls from Clarkey.
His voicemail was he said, "Listen, Matty, I know what's happened. Like, make sure you give me a call when you get this, etc." And at the time, as soon as I got out of jail, I went for a Sunday roast. I went to Rocco's of all places for a Sunday roast, and I rang him back in there, and he said to me, "Where are you?"
Rocco's for a roast.
Just sitting in Rocco's. And he said he was, to be fair, he was fuming. He said, "Do you think this is where you need to be?" He said, "You've just been locked up, done for drink driving." He says, "Do you think that's the sensible place to be?"
Yeah, on your Sunday roast in Rocco's.
Again, because I'm stupid young footballer, naive, just thinking nothing of it. And then, Monday morning, like I said, the paper comes through the door, the Mirror, and it's all over the back page.
National.
And obviously the headline had read, "Caught drink driving in his underpants," which, at the time, obviously, especially for my girlfriend, you're reading that, you're thinking, well, Jesus, what's going on? What's going on here?
Yeah, God, yeah. Cool.
That was the first thing that came into my mind, and it was just obviously it was innocent, it was mad, and I'm thinking, oh shit, this is bigger than what it is.
What sort of reaction did the players give you? Because I could imagine some of the lone boys might have found it funny, but I imagine some of the more experienced boys would have not been best pleased with you. What was the reception like from the lads?
To be fair, it was a very, very, very frosty sort of atmosphere when I walked into that dressing room, but I think that was more of the fact of what they knew was coming my way.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, because of what happened, and this was going to basically be what to come was going to be a massive warning for everybody. All coming from me. But obviously, I'd seen the likes of Dion and Hux and that on the way in, and they didn't really say anything bad. I mean, they had a little sort of half smirk, not as if to say it was funny, but.
You idiot. Yeah.
Say you're an idiot, but we still love you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so the wrath of Roeder, what happens?
So as I was walking in, he literally just ran out the office and just started screaming, "Get in, get in the office now!"
No.
And I actually thought at this point, yeah, he's gonna go for me, yeah.
He's going to kill you.
After, when he gets me in his office, he's actually going to throw punches at me, yeah. And I really thought that. And he just basically, like, obviously don't want to repeat the language, but like, we're just effing, sit down, like, you know. And he just went, you know, he says, "We've given you this opportunity. You know, we've done everything for you. We've took a massive chance for you, and this is how you repay us." And he was bang on. You know, they had shown a lot of faith in me, and I let them down massively. Because what came with that was a lot of media. You know, there was something leaked, and to this day we still don't know who that was, because it was only somebody it only could have came from the dressing room, the stuff that got printed. So there was a you know, that's never a good thing when you've got that in the dressing room. You know, somebody who might put the knife in. You know, so I think there was just everything that surrounded it they didn't need at the time.
I think it's, and by the way, Matty, and obviously we should do this. It's the right thing to do. We're laughing because I'm laughing because of the wrath of Roeder. I'm laughing because of the story of your pants falling down. But I'm definitely not laughing at the fact you were drink driving. And I'm sure you would join me in saying that it's an absolutely horrendous thing to do.
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen, it's a stupid young thing to do. You know, I coach kids now that are of that age. You know, that I'm trying to guide in the right direction. That's certainly not something that I'm ever proud of, or would obviously definitely not advise anybody to do. You know, and it's something that you've got to take seriously. You know,
must be the biggest regret of your career, Matty, right?
Massively, because I think in many ways, once you get a bit of a tag of being a bit of a party boy, you know, somebody who you've been done for drink driving, and then obviously there was a couple of other occasions a few months down the line where something happened again. Yeah. Your name starts getting put out there as a bit of a wrong, and ultimately that's probably largely why, you know, my career at Norwich sort of went down.
Yeah. No, fair enough, and respect to you for saying that, Matty. Let's take it in a different direction now. Let's do a bit of a quick fire. You've mentioned Hucks. Was he the best player that you played with at Norwich?
Yeah, definitely. I think all round, I think definitely the best player. Just obviously one of them lads that could win you a game out of nothing. You know, what people maybe don't realise about Hucks is how hard he works away from the place, away from the pitch. Sorry, I mean the bloke's a machine in terms of his physique. Yeah, fit as anything, trained. He was never injured hardly. You know, and was a good trainer. You know, so for me, probably Hucks, I would say, was definitely the best. Obviously, at the time, Ryan Bertrand, who's a big mate of mine, you know, he was really good for Norwich, but he took his career on to another level. Gibbsy, another one, lone player at the time, spent a lot of time with him. You know, had a great career. Still playing for West Brom, obviously. I'm just trying to think of others. Dion, you know, got the opportunity to play with Dion for a season, which was fantastic. You know, but as well as being such a good player, what a bloke he was as well.
Unbelievable.
You know, like such a nice guy. You know, again, wouldn't say he wasn't a party guy, but he loved sitting down having a couple of pints with him, and you know, he was that type of bloke.
Yeah, just a solid all-round bloke, which is great to hear, Matty. So good to hear. And let's talk about when you left Norwich now, because the reason why you left, if I'm right, was that you fancied your chance of getting in the South Africa World Cup squad. And do you regret that, or do you think because of what had happened, it was the right time to leave Norwich?
You know, I look back. I sit and discuss this all with my wife all the time, and in hindsight, it probably wasn't the right move. In all honesty, you know, my wife was pregnant at the time. You know, and I think it would have been a really good place for us to be. and you know, and bring a child up in that environment where we were. You know, it was time to start quietening down, and I think I would have done that. Obviously, Gunny, you know, Gunny when he left, you know, Paul Lambert came in, and it's 2 back-to-back promotions. I still had 2.5 years left of my, 2 years left of my contract. So, you know, that would have took me sort of back to the Premier League, and then you don't know how you would have fared under a different manager. Again, because it's another manager bringing his own ideas to a club. You know, I didn't fit into Gunny's plans. You know, and some of that again was down to that tag of getting involved in problems all the time. You know, South Africa, I'll say now, when I look back at it, was a great move for me. It was. So it was a good move and it wasn't a good move. But financially, it was a fantastic move for me. I did get the opportunity to try and get in that World Cup squad, which I didn't in the end. I think I should have done, but I didn't. You know, and it was one of them places. If I didn't have my wife and children, you know, my last year in South Africa, I obviously had my youngest daughter. You know, and if it wasn't for them, I probably would have stopped out there till even now, and I would have finished my career out there.
Oh, wow, blimey!
I did really. Once I was there, I loved it.
But Matty, it's not all doom and gloom with regards to the Bafana, because you did make 5 appearances for the national team, right?
Yeah, I did play in the end a couple of times. You know, I should have played again a lot more, because I got to a point where I was really performing out there, and my football, you know, I took my football to another level out there, and whether that was because I'd settled down a bit and I'd matured a little bit, or whether maybe the standard probably wasn't as good. Yeah, another reason. You know, it wasn't the championship. But I really enjoyed my time out there. But in hindsight, I think I should have probably stuck Norwich out longer than I did, and you know, I think I could have really settled there.
The grass isn't always greener, as the Norwich fans quite often say to a lot of people. That is normally the way it goes. But it's one of those things, isn't it, Matty, where I think quite often when you come to Norwich, we're not a Newcastle, right? But we're kind of in that middle. We're up and down from Championship to Premier League, and there is always this element of, I could probably do a little bit better than Norwich, but it's like, how do you make that step? When do you make that step? And you certainly weren't the only person to fall victim of that at all. I mean, Lee Croft's a massive one. You know, he said to me forever and a day, his biggest regret was leaving the club at the time for Derby. And Matty, what are you up to these days? What's going on in your world?
So I take the under-19s academy at Gateshead, so academy manager. Something that I really enjoy. I have been getting involved with the first team quite often as well. You know, so it's a stepping stone. You know, I've took my badges, and it's something that I really enjoy. It comes naturally. You know, it's something that I'll probably pursue on again and keep doing as well as I can. You know, I love working with lads that are like I said before, or what I used to be.
Because you know what not to do, which is great.
And I think it comes across. I think the way I am comes across in a good way to players, because I think they respond quite well to that.
The Lee Clark, not the Glenn Roeder.
I think more so Clark. I think, yeah. You know, so I think something that I enjoy, and it's where I see myself, I think.
What's your ambition for the future, Matty? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do?
Again, it's just taking this as far as I can, really. I'll continue to do badges and improve on that. You know, and I'll continue working with Gateshead and trying to produce as many young players into that first team as possible. You know, we've got a great setup at the club. It's a club that is probably not the place where it should be. You know, down to factors that aren't football related. You know, and we've got a brilliant team of people at the club now. You've got Mike Williamson as manager. You know, Ian Watson assistant, and they've taken the club to another level. And I want to be a part of that, and and take this club as far as we can. It's on my doorstep. It's home, so it's a really good fit for me right now.
We wish you all the very best of luck. And Matty, there are obviously literally thousands of Norwich fans watching and listening to this now. This is your opportunity to. What sort of message? What message would you give them after the time you had at the club?
I think if there's a memory that always sticks in my mind, and it was that game after the incident with the drink driving and whatnot, and Glenn kept his faith in me for that weekend. I think we played Colchester at home, and I remember we battered in that day. I think we might have
5-1, wasn't it? Because that was when Semi scored that day, didn't he?
It was, yeah, and we won the game 5-1. And the memory that always sticks in my mind is when I came off. I think I came off after about 65 minutes.
Yeah,
and all the fans were up, and they was a standing ovation for me coming off. And I think a lot of it was down to the fact, again, saying you've made a mistake, it was the wrong thing to do, but we stick by you, because the fans always understood that I gave everything for the club. And whether that was enough in terms of a performance, it wasn't always. It was probably my time at Norwich was a little bit too inconsistent. But again, I was a young player. But I think they could always say that I gave 100%. And I think that was them showing their appreciation that day and sticking with me. And they were fantastic all the time. I very rarely bumped into a Norwich fan on a Saturday night or during the week that had something bad to say about me. It was always positive, and as a city, everything. I love the place, and it'll always have a special place in my heart. I always thank them for their support.
That's so good to hear, Matty. It really is, and also it says a lot about how important it is to stick by your players. When backs are against the wall, when something's going on behind the scenes, it's always good to give people a chance, and it's always good to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's really good to hear it from your point of view, Matty. So thank you for sharing that. Matty, that is it. I just wanted to say a huge thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
I thoroughly enjoyed that. Thanks for having me on. It was good to have my first bit of media about Norwich City since leaving.
I really do. I really appreciate it, honestly. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you to every single person right now that's watching or listening. If you're watching, don't forget we're almost at 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe. And if you're listening on iTunes, leave a 5-star review. Don't you dare leave a 4-star. Matty, there's only one thing left to say. What's that?
On the ball, City.
Come on.
Love it.
Thanks, Matty. Cheers.